Rotted Reviews, and the advent calendar of Christmas horror movies continues, this time with the 2020 entry, The Nights Before Christmas, which was the sequel to the 2017 film, Once Upon a Time at Christmas. Alright, so here's how this review is going to be structured. I'm going to give a spoiler-free breakdown / review of this movie because honestly, if I didn't, it would just feel a little bit lazy. And I'm also going to be maybe talking about some spoilery points as far as the previous film goes in relation to this movie. So just word of warning on that one. And then when I'm all done with all of that, I am going to, at that point, reveal why none of the words that I just spoke mattered at all. It's gonna be great. Let's get to it. Alright, so The Nights Before Christmas, written and directed by Paul Tanter and also written by Simon Phillips. The team is back in a number of ways. Paul Tanter's back directing this. Simon Phillips is back acting in this as Mr. Santa Claus, and also he has his Mrs. Claus with him. The team is indeed back. Only this time it's slightly different because how they're choosing their victims is a different style and methodology, as well as they're not being hunted by local police anymore. They are being hunted by the FBI. They are very much one of America's most wanted, and a manhunt is absolutely underway. Meanwhile, the year winds around again, and we wind up at Christmas time. Perfect time for some slaughtering to happen. So everybody's kind of on guard while they basically spring back up and enact their new plan. This time, they specifically mark bodies and crime scenes being naughty or nice. Now, there were some things about this movie that I honestly liked a whole lot more than Once Upon a Time at Christmas, and then a few things not quite so much. And to kind of break those down, well, it is a little bit difficult to talk about this without talking about the previous one. So one of the things I didn't really care for about this one in relation to the other is, I mentioned in my review of that yesterday after my long rant about good bad movies, the police were chasing their tail for well over an hour as far as how Mr. and Mrs. Claus were choosing their victims. Meanwhile, we had it figured out 10 minutes in because it broadcasted it with a megaphone. It was not subtle about it at all. So we spent the entirety of the movie watching the police just flounder. This time, we watch the FBI flounder, but instead, we are not presented with an easy-to-solve puzzle. And unfortunately, we're also not presented with a difficult-to-solve puzzle. We're presented with an impossible-to-solve puzzle. In this case, it's nothing that we can really figure out because it's based on factual evidence that doesn't come about until the FBI's realization kicks in. So we are just not presented with the information necessary to, connect the dots, which I think was honestly a shame because I think it would have been a little bit fun to have kind of a cat and mouse game between Paul Tanter and the audience in terms of, can you figure this out before the FBI does? We'll drop these hints. In this case, they really didn't. But what I did like was, I mentioned that Once Upon a Time at Christmas was a scrappy movie. It really tried to be very ambitious and have a big blockbuster, multi-million-dollar feel to it, even though it only had a $1 million budget. And I like that because it kind of translates into this movie as well. It really does have a lot of ambitions, but in this case, I think it actually did improve on several things from the previous entry. Number one, something that really needed to be addressed, and I think that this movie did, was it doesn't have nearly as much terrible CGI blood splatter. I hate that effect so much, and fortunately this movie dialed that down. It might not have even been there at all. If it was, I actually didn't notice it, so kudos on that one. And as far as how it managed to have a big blockbustery feel to it, or at least grand ambitions toward that, and pulling it off fairly well, I think that this actually improved on that even further. Yes, it still is scrappy. Yes, it still is limited budget. We still had scenes where they're talking about, where's my chopper? I called in a chopper. And then you'd have a drone shot. Meanwhile, you'd hear, thump, 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 sound effects. So yeah, it faked it as much as it could, but it still had a nice polish to it, and damn if it didn't try to pull off something pretty incredible here. This is still just the same mind-numbing action, cops chasing after these two as they go on slasher slaughter sprees. I mean, it is what it is, and it's unapologetic and unabashed about it, and I really have to tip my hat to it. It actually does absolutely still earn the Rotted Reviews Good Bad Movie seal of approval. So we'll just go ahead and toss that up there right now. I enjoyed this one. It is mindless. It is stupid. It's part action movie, part horror movie, part Christmas movie. It's just a whole lot of things. But what it is, more than anything else, is fun. And I think it actually took that element of fun and ramped it up. So here's why none of what I just said mattered at all. Because ultimately, what it comes down to is if you liked the first one, you're going to love this one. If you didn't, then you won't. That's just it, period. And you really shouldn't watch this one until you watch the first one. So if you're watching this review and you haven't seen either, moot point. Go watch the first one and find out what you thought of it. If you liked it, then yeah, go ahead and revisit this one. Other than that, I really don't have a whole lot more to say on it. It is what it is. It's a fantastic, fun carnival ride. The absolute quintessential essence of turn your brain off and just have some fucking holiday fun while Santa goes after people with an axe. So thank you very much for watching this and enjoying this, I hope. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.